The sound of the clock ticking echoed through the empty room. Its rhythmic pulse a sharp contrast to the quiet storms swirling in my mind. I stood by the window, staring out into the vast, indifferent world beyond. It was a sunny afternoon, one of those moments where everything feels perfect on the outside. But on the inside, it's a different story altogether. I was 16 when I found out I was pregnant. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even something I had ever imagined for myself. But here I was, alone with a decision no teenager should have to face. The boy I loved, Mike, he disappeared, gone, just like that, without so much as a glance back. His family, a life that promised futures and dreams, had no space for me or the child we created. I remember the cold, numbing realization as I stared at the pregnancy test. The world around me slowing to a crawl. The weight of what I had to do felt unbearable. And as I watched Mike's world continue to turn, untouched by the storm that raged inside me, I had to make a choice. Abortion? It wasn't an option for me. It wasn't right for me. So, I chose adoption, knowing it would give my baby a life I couldn't provide. The pain of parting with my child was a wound that never fully healed. But in the quiet corners of my heart, I knew I had made the right decision. But life has a way of forcing the past into your present. Now, 16 years later, everything seemed perfect. Well, almost. I had built a life with Aaron, my husband, who loved me in ways I never thought possible. My stepson, a boy who had become the son I never thought I would have. Called me his other mom, and I embraced the role with everything I had. But, just like that, everything changed. One fateful day, when I accompanied my stepson to a routine medical appointment, I ran into someone who should have been a distant memory. Mike. I didn't recognize him at first. The years had passed, and his name, both first and last, were so common that I almost missed it. But when I saw his face, heard his voice, I knew right away. He wasn't the same boy I once loved. He was a man now. A man with regrets. A man who thought he could rewrite the past. As if we could just pick up where we left off. He thought the child I was with was his. And for a moment, just a brief moment, I felt the earth shift beneath my feet. Mike stood there, apologizing, rambling about the son we never had the chance to raise together. And how he wished he could have been there for me. But the thing is, he wasn't, and he had no right to make demands on my life now. I gave him up for adoption. Mike, he's not our son. He's my stepson. I'm a stepmother, I said, trying to steady my shaking hands as I helped my stepson into the car. But Mike didn't stop there. His appearance sparked a firestorm, a battle of words that soon turned into a war on social media. He painted a picture of me as a woman who abandoned her child. And worse, a woman who threw away the chance at a family. He branded me as the villain in our shared story. And suddenly, I found myself facing a judgment that I thought I had buried long ago. The past was clawing its way back into my present, threatening everything I had worked so hard to build. My family, my peace, my happiness. But here's the thing. I wasn't the same girl who once cried alone in the dark, afraid of what her future might hold. I had learned to fight for what mattered. And now, with Mike back in the picture, I had to make the most important decision of my life. To protect the family I had now. Or to let the past destroy everything I had built. Transition to Part 1. The past that still haunts. As I sat down with Aaron that evening, everything rushed back. The anger, the confusion, the grief. It all came flooding back like a river breaking through a dam. I had to face it head on. No more running. No more hiding. Mike's return wasn't just a simple reunion. It was a reminder that some things never truly go away. The past never stays buried. Now, I had to face the choice. Do I allow the ghosts of my past to haunt my present? Or do I finally put an end to it all? Question. Have you ever had to confront your past unexpectedly? What would you do if someone from your past came back into your life after so many years? Let me know your thoughts below. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the living room. It was quiet, almost too quiet for a house that had seen so much love, laughter, and chaos. My fingers traced the rim of the coffee mug, feeling the warmth seep into my skin. But the chill in my chest remained. No amount of warmth could thaw the ache I had carried for years. I glanced at the pictures on the wall. My husband Aaron, smiling proudly with his children. The beautiful family I had always dreamed of. Then, there was me, standing beside them. A stranger in a world I never thought would be mine. But as I stood there, my heart didn't race from joy. It trembled with the weight of a past I had never truly left behind. 16 years ago, I was a girl, still so young, barely able to grasp the enormity of the choice before me. I had just turned 16 when I found out I was pregnant. The test, that faint blue line, was all it took for the world around me to collapse. It felt like a dream, no, a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Mike, the boy I loved, the one who had promised me forever, was gone. His disappearance wasn't dramatic. No big scene, no final goodbyes. He simply vanished, like smoke in the wind. He had dreams, ambitions, things that, in his eyes, I wasn't part of. And just like that, the life I thought we would have together, the family we were supposed to build, was nothing but a distant fantasy. I was left alone. Alone in a world that expected me to find answers. Alone with a choice that no child should ever have to make. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but it was happening, and I wasn't ready to face the world's judgment. I remember how my parents looked at me, not with anger, but with pity, as though they knew the life I was about to give up for this baby was far more than I could handle. I couldn't bring myself to make the decision to end the pregnancy. Though, I couldn't live with that choice. I couldn't live with the guilt of choosing for my child's life to end before it even began. So, I chose adoption. It wasn't easy. Every moment was a battle between what I wanted and what was best. I fought with myself, for the life of that tiny person growing inside me, for the life they deserved. But when the moment came, when I held him in my arms for that fleeting moment, I knew I had to let him go. I couldn't hold him. Not because I didn't want to, but because I loved him too much to watch him grow up in a life I couldn't provide. His new parents were kind, loving, everything I wasn't. They deserved him, and he deserved them. I gave him up, the hardest thing I've ever done. And yet, it was the right thing. That's what I told myself. Every day, that's what I told myself when I saw his tiny face in the arms of his new mother. And as I turned away, I couldn't look back. The pain of parting with my child was unbearable. But I made the decision to move forward, to build a life that didn't include him. I married Aaron 6 years ago. He had 2 children from his previous marriage. And we built a life. It was imperfect, like all lives are, but it was ours. My stepson, Alex, became my son in every sense of the word. We had our moments of tension. Sure, but the love we shared was undeniable. He called me Other Mom, and I wore that title proudly. It was a family built from the wreckage of our pasts. A family that wasn't perfect but was perfect in its own way. I thought I had left the past behind. The decision to give my son up for adoption was something I thought I had healed from. I thought the pain had faded, and the guilt was a shadow that no longer haunted me. But the truth is, I never fully let go of that past. I just buried it, and then, like a ghost rising from the ashes, Mike reappeared. It wasn't in the way I expected. It wasn't in a text or a phone call or a random message. No, he appeared, of all places, at a medical appointment for Alex. A routine visit, nothing serious, nothing worth remembering. But Mike was there, standing in front of me. His face still familiar yet foreign. His presence like a ghost from the past. I didn't recognize him immediately. The years had blurred the details. His face was the same, yet different. Time had done its job, turning him into a man, not the boy I once knew. And when he spoke, when he rambled about apologies, about regrets, about how he thought our son was still his to claim, it hit me like a punch in the stomach. I felt that familiar pull, that familiar ache in my chest. It was like the world paused for a second, and I was 16 again, standing at a crossroads. But I wasn't that scared girl anymore. I had moved on. I had built a life. And as I looked at Mike, as I listened to his words, something inside me snapped. I couldn't let him rewrite my story. I couldn't let him back in. Not after everything. Not after all the years of pain, of trying to heal, of becoming someone new. Mike, I said, my voice shaking, this is not the baby I was pregnant with. I gave him up for adoption. I'm a stepmother now. His face fell. The reality of my words hit him, and I could see the shock in his eyes. He wasn't ready to hear it. He wasn't ready to face the truth. But the truth had to be said. And in that moment, I realized something. My past had followed me. It had never left, and no matter how much I tried to bury it, it was still there, lurking beneath the surface. But now, Mike wasn't just a ghost from my past. He was a threat to everything I had built. Transition to part 2. The decision. Giving up a child for a better future. As the days passed, Mike's presence loomed over my life. His social media posts, his attempts to reach out, his distorted version of our story, everything he did, everything he said, pushed me to the edge. I wasn't the same girl I was when I met him. I wasn't that scared, broken teen anymore. I had a family now. A family that loved me. A family that I would protect at all costs. But Mike's return wasn't just about him. It was about me proving to myself that I was stronger than my past. That I could protect what mattered most. And so, I made a choice that would change everything. But the question remained, could I really leave the past behind? Or would it continue to haunt me forever? Comment question. What would you do if someone from your past came back into your life and tried to rewrite your story? How would you protect what you've built? Let me know in the comments. The room was cold, too cold for a summer day. And yet, all I felt was the heat, the suffocating, unbearable heat that swelled inside me with every passing second. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection of a girl I didn't recognize. The faintest line across the pregnancy test was all it took to change my world. And now, as I placed my hand gently on my swollen belly, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the decision that was about to crush me. 16 years old, that's all I was, just a child. I should have been planning for prom, dreaming about my future, not sitting in a sterile room, holding a tiny life that I had no idea how to care for. Mike, the boy who had promised to love me forever, was gone, just gone. His family didn't want him to get tied down by me or the baby. So, when I told him I was pregnant, he disappeared into the life he wanted, leaving me alone with nothing but my parents' disappointed eyes and a world full of judgment. I was scared, not just of what people would say but of the responsibility that now rested on my shoulders. I had no idea how to be a mother. I wasn't even sure I was ready to take care of myself. How could I take care of a child? But even in my confusion, even in my fear, I knew deep down that I couldn't take the easy way out. I couldn't end this life growing inside me. Abortion? It wasn't an option. At least, not for me. I couldn't bear the thought of making that choice. It felt like I would be taking away something too precious. Something that, in some twisted way, was mine. So, I made a choice. I chose adoption. But it wasn't as simple as just signing a piece of paper and walking away. Every moment was a battle in my head. I remember the nights I stayed up, wondering if I was making the right choice. The pain, the guilt, the doubt, they consumed me. Was I doing the right thing for my child? Was I abandoning him? I cried myself to sleep every night, praying that somehow the answers would come, but they never did. My parents were there, supportive, but I could see the sadness in their eyes. They had raised me to be strong, to stand on my own 2 feet. But this was different. They knew that no matter what I chose, I would never be the same. And then came the meeting with the couple who wanted to adopt. They were kind, gentle, and everything I wasn't. They were the kind of parents I could never be at 16. The woman, Marissa, was a teacher, and her husband, Daniel, worked from home. They seemed perfect. They had everything I couldn't offer. They promised to give my child a life full of love and opportunity. They made it clear that they didn't see this as a transaction, but as a gift, a chance for my baby to live a life of possibility. I remember the first time I held my son. His tiny body, so warm against my chest, made my heart ache with a love so deep it felt like I was being torn apart. And as I looked at him, I knew I couldn't keep him. I couldn't give him the life he deserved. I couldn't offer him a future. So, with shaking hands, I made the hardest decision I've ever made. I handed him over. I watched as Marissa took him into her arms. And for the first time, I saw the future I had promised him. It wasn't the future I had hoped for myself, but it was the right one for him. In that moment, something inside me broke. It was like a piece of my soul was torn away. And yet, in the brokenness, there was also peace. I made my decision, and it was final. There was no going back. But as much as I tried to bury the pain, I couldn't escape the emptiness that lingered in the pit of my stomach. I had done the right thing, but the wound would never heal. As time passed, I moved forward. I finished high school with the help of my parents, who never stopped supporting me. They took me to counseling, helped me heal, and guided me through the hardest years of my life. I tried to forget. I tried to build a future that wasn't shaped by the past. But the past has a way of sneaking up on you when you least expect it. I went to college, got a job, and met Aaron. He was everything I needed: steady, reliable, kind. He was divorced, but that didn't matter. We connected in a way that felt natural, effortless. We got married 6 years ago. And though Aaron had 2 kids from his previous marriage, I thought I had found the family I had always longed for. Alex, my stepson, became the son I never thought I would have. He was sweet, thoughtful, and always wanted me there. It felt like a dream come true. I became a mother in a way I never thought possible. I loved him fiercely, even though he wasn't my biological son. He called me "Other Mom," and I wore that title with pride. But in the back of my mind, there was always the memory of my own child, the one I gave up. Every birthday, every holiday, I thought of him. I wondered if he was okay, if he was happy, if he ever thought of me. But it wasn't something I ever let myself dwell on. I had a family now, a family that loved me, and I loved them in return. And just when I thought I had put the past behind me, Mike walked back into my life. Transition to Part 3. Mike's reappearance and his attempt to rewrite our history. I had spent years burying the past, trying to forget the pain of that decision. I had moved on. I had built a new life, one I could be proud of. But Mike's sudden reappearance in my life stirred up everything I had fought so hard to forget. When I saw him standing there, in the same hospital parking lot, a sense of dread washed over me. It was as though the years melted away, and I was once again that scared, lonely girl standing at a crossroads, unsure of what to do next. But this time, I wasn't alone. This time, I had a family I would fight for. And I knew, deep down, I couldn't let Mike rewrite our story. Question. Have you ever had to make a life-changing decision that still affects you to this day? How did you cope with it? And what advice would you give to someone going through something similar? Let me know in the comments below. The wedding day was everything I had ever dreamed of: white flowers, soft music, the love and support of everyone who mattered in my life. But as I stood there in my wedding dress, staring at Aaron, my heart was a battlefield. For all the beauty around me, a storm raged inside. It was my chance at happiness. But I knew deep down, my past had never really gone away. Aaron wasn't just my future. He was the key to a life I never thought I would have. A life that felt so far removed from the girl who had been abandoned, who had given up her child. He was steady. He was kind. He had 2 children from his previous marriage. And I wasn't sure what role I was supposed to play in their lives. Was I just the woman who married their father? Was I going to be a real mother to them? I didn't know. I still felt like an imposter. How could I be a mother when I had failed once already? And how could I claim a place in this family when I knew the shadow of my past would always loom over me? Our life together wasn't simple. Aaron's children, Emma and Alex, were older when we got together, which made the dynamic a bit more complicated. Emma, who was 19 by the time we married, was already independent. She was kind, but we were never going to be best friends. She had her own life, her own mother, and her loyalty was always with her family. But Alex, he was different. He was 16, just a boy. Really, he needed stability. He needed someone who would love him. Someone who would be there. And as soon as I stepped into his world, I knew I could be that person. There was something about Alex that made him special. He wasn't like the other teenagers I had known. His heart was pure, kind, and he wore his emotions on his sleeve. Maybe that was why we clicked so easily. Or maybe it was because we both needed something from each other. A bond that neither of us had known before. From the moment I first met him, it was like we were meant to be in each other's lives. He started calling me, "Other Mom," and, even though it might sound odd to others, I embraced that title. It wasn't about replacing his real mom, Bella. I never wanted to do that. I just wanted to be a part of his life. To give him the love and support he deserved. But it wasn't always easy. As much as I tried to love him, there were times when I felt like an outsider. Like I wasn't truly part of their world. No matter how hard I tried. Aaron's past with Bella was complicated. They were divorced, yes, but they were still very much a family. Bella was part of Aaron's life. And that made things a little tricky. She wasn't just a mother to their children. She was a friend to Aaron. A reminder of their shared history. And I knew I had to accept that. I wasn't there to replace her. And I wasn't there to compete. I was simply there to be a mother to my stepson. To offer him the love and care I had once wished for myself. But that didn't stop the doubts from creeping in. Sometimes, when Aaron would mention Bella's name, or when Emma and Alex would talk about their memories with her, I felt a pang of jealousy. Something I wasn't proud of. I wanted to be the one they turned to be the one they trusted. But I knew I couldn't erase Bella from their lives. Just like I couldn't erase my past. It was a part of me, always there, always lingering, no matter how far I tried to run from it. One afternoon, after a long week, Aaron and I sat on the couch. The weight of the world pressing down on us. He knew what I was feeling, he always did. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to tell him how lost I felt. How unsure I was of my place in this family. He squeezed my hand gently. As if to say, "It's okay, you're not alone in this." I didn't know it then. But Aaron was the one who would give me the stability I needed to truly heal. He was patient. He was understanding. And he gave me the space to grow. To become the woman I wanted to be. Without trying to erase the parts of me I wasn't proud of. Alex, too, played a role in my healing. His quiet way of showing love. His occasional, "Other Mom," when he needed someone. His goofy sense of humor that mirrored mine. It all felt so natural. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just a person standing on the outside, looking in. I was part of something. I was a mother, a wife, a daughter-in-law, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. But just when I thought things were finally falling into place, something unexpected happened that shook me to my core. Transition to Part 4. The Unwelcome Return. Mike reappears. It was supposed to be a normal day, just another medical appointment for Alex. But when I stepped into the clinic, I saw him. Mike. There he was, standing in the hallway, looking just as I remembered. Yet so different, so much had changed. But the moment I saw him, it was like no time had passed. The years of hurt, of betrayal, flooded back, and I had to ask myself, could I truly leave my past behind? Or would it keep following me, threatening the life I had worked so hard to build? Question. Have you ever struggled to find your place in a family that wasn't yours from the beginning? How did you cope with those feelings? Let me know in the comments below. The waiting room was silent, save for the soft murmur of distant voices and the ticking of the clock. I sat in the corner. Alex beside me, his face a little flushed from the anesthesia they'd given him. He was talking, mostly nonsense, a side effect of the medication. But I didn't mind. It was comforting, hearing him laugh quietly, knowing I was the one he trusted to be there. But just as I was starting to feel the weight of the day lift off my shoulders, I saw him. Mike. His name hit me like a slap across the face. It wasn't his appearance that shocked me. He looked almost the same. Older, more worn, but still, the face that haunted my past. What caught me off guard was the feeling that washed over me. It wasn't just the sudden reappearance of someone who had disappeared without a trace all those years ago. It was the flood of memories, of heartbreak, confusion, betrayal, that hit me like a tidal wave. The moment our eyes met, I froze. My heart beat painfully in my chest. I could feel the walls I had so carefully built, the life I had worked so hard to create, begin to crack. And there he was, the man who had walked out on me, on our child, the man who had left me to make a decision no one should ever have to make alone. I tried to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen him. But it was too late. He was walking toward me now, a hesitant smile on his lips, like he hadn't spent years ignoring me, years leaving me alone with our broken past. Is it really you? His voice was tentative, like he was unsure of how to even approach me after so much time. And as much as I wanted to stay calm, something inside me snapped. It was the absurdity of it all, the audacity, the nerve of him, that made the tears rise in my throat. Mike, I said, my voice shaking but firm. What the hell are you doing here? He didn't seem to catch the anger in my voice. He smiled again, though it wasn't the carefree smile of the boy I had once loved. It was guarded, almost apologetic. I've been thinking about you. About what happened. I didn't mean for things to end like this. I couldn't breathe. My stomach churned as I processed his words. The memories of that time. The loneliness. The betrayal. It all came rushing back. He had left me. He had chosen his future over me. Over us. He kept talking, rambling on about regrets. About how he was sorry for not being there. How he couldn't stop thinking about our son. Our son? The words caught in my throat. It felt like I had been hit with a physical blow. Mike, he's not ours. He never was. I gave him up. I made a choice. And you were never part of it. You weren't there then. You don't get to be a part of it now. Mike stopped in his tracks, confusion and pain flashing across his face. He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. This isn't about you anymore. I have a life now. A family. I turned to Alex, still drowsy in the chair beside me, trying to hide the tears that were threatening to spill. I needed to steady myself. I needed to be strong, for him. For Aaron. For the family I had built. But Mike wasn't done. I don't think you understand, he said, his voice softening. I wasn't ready then, but I am now. I've thought about it, and I think we could still be a family. Maybe we could raise him together. Maybe we could make up for what I did. The words stung more than I thought they would. The nerve, How dare he think he could come back and pick up where we left off? How dare he try to erase the years of pain and healing I had gone through? I thought I had moved on. I thought I had built something worth fighting for. But now, with him standing in front of me, all that progress felt fragile. "Mike," I whispered, my voice shaky but resolute. "You're 16 years too late." It was then that I realized I wasn't the same girl anymore. I wasn't the girl who had waited for him. I wasn't the girl who had hoped, who had believed that maybe, just maybe, he would come back for me. I had grown up, I had moved on, and no matter how much he tried to rewrite our past, he couldn't take away the life I had built. I took a deep breath, standing taller, feeling a sense of finality in the air. "I'm not doing this," I said, my voice steadier now. "I have a family, a real family, and I'm not going to let you destroy that." Mike stood there, frozen. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But then I remembered everything he had put me through, everything I had worked so hard to overcome. I wasn't going to let him tear my life apart again. I turned my back on him, walking out of the clinic, leaving Mike and his empty apologies behind. But as we stepped into the sunlight, a sense of relief washed over me. I had done it. I had stood up to the ghosts of my past. I had protected what mattered most. Transition to Part 5. The consequences of Mike's actions. But Mike wasn't going to let go that easily. As the days went by, I watched as the past came rushing back, not just in my heart but on social media. He painted a picture of me as the villain in a story that I no longer wanted to be a part of. His words, his lies, his attempts to tear apart the life I had built, they were everywhere. And with every post, with every call from his friends and family, the weight of it all seemed heavier. But this time, I wasn't going to run. This time, I was going to fight for my family. Question. Have you ever had someone from your past try to re-enter your life in a way that felt wrong? How did you handle it? And what advice would you give to others facing a similar situation? Let me know in the comments. The days following my encounter with Mike felt like walking through a fog. I couldn't shake the images of him, standing there in front of me, eyes full of regret and hope. The words he had spoken echoed in my mind. We could still be a family. I want to be there for him. I want to be a father. It didn't matter that he had left me when I needed him most. It didn't matter that he had chosen a future over us. What mattered now was the way he tried to rewrite our history. As though his absence could be erased with a few words. A few apologies. I tried to bury it. I really did. I had my family now. Aaron, Alex, our life together. But I couldn't ignore the chaos Mike had stirred up. I knew it wasn't over yet. Mike wasn't going to just walk away. It started with the social media posts. Subtle at first, cryptic messages. Half sentences. Things that seemed like they could be about anyone. But slowly, his narrative started to unfold. The woman who abandoned me. The mother who threw away her chance at happiness. His words painted me as the villain. He cast me as the person who betrayed him. Who denied him the chance to be a father. He made it sound like I was the one who had ruined everything. And, worst of all, people believed him. I found out about the posts through a friend. The messages in my inbox started piling up. Old classmates. Mutual acquaintances. People I hadn't spoken to in years. They were all telling me the same thing. Mike was spinning a story. One that made me look like the villain. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't done anything wrong. I had made a choice, a painful, heart-wrenching choice, but a choice I knew was best. Yet, Mike had twisted it, manipulated it into something ugly. The anger inside me began to bubble up. An old, familiar feeling. I was being dragged back into a past I had fought so hard to leave behind. I had to confront him. I arranged to meet him at a coffee shop. Just the two of us. Aaron knew, of course. He supported me, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He wasn't sure what to expect. Neither was I had no idea what I was walking into. But I couldn't let Mike continue to ruin my life. To manipulate the truth. It was time to stand up for myself. For my family. When I walked into the cafe, Mike was already sitting at a table, staring down at his coffee. He didn't look the same as he had at the clinic. He was dressed sharply, but there was something off about him. Something calculating. He looked up when I approached, a hesitant smile forming on his lips. "I'm glad you came," he said, as if he had some right to feel that way. I didn't smile back. Instead, I took a seat across from him, folding my arms, feeling the weight of everything I had to say pressing down on me. "Mike," I started, my voice steady but cold. "You don't get to rewrite our past. You don't get to manipulate everyone into thinking I'm the one who hurt you. You weren't ready to be a father. And you made your choice. I made mine. And I don't owe you any explanations." He didn't seem fazed by my words. If anything, he looked more determined. "I wasn't ready. I admit that. But I've thought about it. About what we could have had. I know I messed up. But I want to make it right. I want to be a part of our son's life." I blinked, taken aback by his audacity. "Our son? You're talking about Alex now?" I shook my head, the anger in my chest rising again. "Alex is not your son. He never will be. He has a father. And I am his mother. I've worked hard to build this family. You don't get to walk in and tear it apart just because you feel guilty about not being there." Mike's eyes flickered for a moment, and I could see the shift in his demeanor. He wasn't going to back down. "I'm not trying to tear anything apart," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. "I'm just saying, why not give me a chance? Why not let me try to be a father to him? I know you still care about me. I can see it in your eyes. Maybe we could make it work." The words hit me like a slap. My heart began to race, my blood boiling. This was what he thought? After everything? After years of silence, of betrayal, he thought I still cared about him? He thought he could just waltz back into my life and everything would magically fall into place? I felt something snap inside me. The pain of the past, the betrayal, the sacrifices I had made, it all flooded back in an instant. But this time, instead of curling in on myself, I fought back. "You don't get to make demands anymore," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "You left me, Mike. You walked away. You don't get to come back and pretend you're the hero in this story. You're not. You're just a man who made a choice. And that choice wasn't me. It wasn't our son. And now you're trying to tear my life apart. And I won't let you." There was a long silence. Mike sat back in his chair, staring at me, as if the words I had just said had cut him to his core. He opened his mouth, but I held up my hand, stopping him before he could speak. "No," I said, my voice firm. "This conversation is over. I'm done. I'm not going to let you manipulate me anymore. You had your chance. I'm happy now. I have a family. And I'm not going to let you take that away from me." Mike stood up slowly, his face a mask of frustration and disbelief. "I never wanted to hurt you," he muttered, almost to himself. "I just wanted to make it right. You can't fix what's broken." "Mike," I replied softly, standing up to face him. "Not anymore." As he walked away, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It was over. He was gone. For good this time. But as I stepped outside into the bright sunlight, I couldn't shake the feeling that the battle wasn't truly over. There were still things to resolve. Still pieces of my past to bury. And Mike, despite everything, wasn't going to let me go that easily. Transition to Part 6. Final resolution. Confronting Mike and reclaiming her life. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. Mike's posts continued. His attempts to reach out never stopped. But I knew, deep down, that the fight had only just begun. He had opened a door I wasn't sure I was ready to face. And now I had to figure out how to close it for good. Comment question. Have you ever had to deal with someone trying to manipulate your life? And how did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. The tension in the air was thick as I sat across from Mike at the cafe. The same cafe where, years ago, we had shared our first awkward coffee date. Back when our world was full of promises and naive dreams. But now, as I stared at him, I realized how much had changed. The boy I once knew had become a man. But he wasn't the man I needed. He wasn't the man I wanted. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as the weight of everything I had been through, the betrayal, the pain, the choices I had made to protect myself and my future, washed over me. For years, I had buried the past, convinced that it no longer had a hold on me. But Mike's reappearance had shaken everything I thought I knew about myself. His apology was laced with desperation. But his words, as usual, felt empty. I've been thinking about what happened. About what we could have had. I wasn't ready back then. But I am now. I want to make things right. I want to be there for our son. I know it's been a long time. But I still care. I heard the words. But they didn't resonate with me anymore. They just bounced off the walls I had built around my heart. The walls I had carefully constructed after years of heartache. After years of being abandoned by him when I needed him the most. I didn't speak right away. I needed a moment, not to think, but to steel myself, to remind myself that I was no longer the scared, unsure girl I once was. I had fought hard to create the life I had now. A life that Mike had no place in. I took a deep breath, then met his eyes. Mike, I said, my voice calm but firm. You don't get to come back into my life like this. Not after everything. You weren't there when I needed you. You weren't there when I made the hardest decision of my life. To give our son up for adoption. You weren't there when I was left to navigate the world alone. With nothing but guilt and fear. And now you think you can just waltz back in because you feel guilty? His face twisted, like he didn't understand why I wasn't embracing his apology. Why I wasn't falling back into his arms. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I wasn't someone who would wait for him to choose me. I had learned to choose myself. Mike, you can't just rewrite our story. You can't just waltz in and pretend you get to be a part of my life. I've built something here. Something real. Something beautiful. I've moved on. I'm not the girl you left behind. I'm not the girl who thought you were coming back. I'm stronger than that now. I could see his face crumble as the reality of my words sank in. For the first time, Mike seemed to realize the damage he had done, not just to me, but to everything we could have had. The guilt, the regret, the years of absence, he couldn't undo them. No matter how hard he tried. You're not a part of this anymore, I said, my voice softening, but firm. I've moved on. I have a family now. A family that loves me. And that's where I belong. You're not part of that. Mike sat there in silence. His shoulders slumped, like the weight of his own mistakes finally crushed him. And as much as I wanted to feel sorry for him, as much as I wanted to believe that somehow he could redeem himself, I couldn't. Because the truth was, I had already redeemed myself. I had already rebuilt my life. And it was a life worth protecting. I stood up slowly, my heart steady, my resolve clear. I'm done here, Mike, goodbye. And I walked away, not just from the cafe, but from the past, from him, from the person I had been before. And for the first time in years, I felt free, I felt whole. I wasn't going to allow him to take any more from me. I had built a life with Aaron, with Alex. I had a future now. And nothing, not even the ghosts of my past, would take that away. Closing thoughts. The future ahead. Mike's disappearance from my life felt like the closing of a door I had left open for far too long. And as I moved forward, with Aaron and Alex by my side, I realized something. The past could never define me again. The past would no longer hold me hostage. I had learned, through years of pain, betrayal, and growth, that I was the one who controlled my story now. As I embraced my family, I knew that nothing Mike could say or do would ever change what I had built. The decision to confront him was the final step in reclaiming my life. And with every step I took, I moved further away from the person I used to be, closer to the woman I had become. The past was behind me. And now, I was ready for the future. Comment question. Have you ever had to confront someone from your past in order to move forward? How did you handle it? And how did it change your life? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and joining me on this journey. If you found this story meaningful and emotional, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to receive more exciting and heartfelt videos. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to continue creating more impactful stories. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.